Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dancing SOBR podcast, and we have another exciting show for you today. I want to give a big thank you to Espacio 1839 for allowing us to do our podcast here in this store. Please take a look at their website, espacio1839.com, or come visit them at 1839 First Street, East First Street in Boyle Heights. They have a lot of books here, they have a lot of shirts, and they have just a lot of cultural items, things that you might want to buy, things that you might want to share with your family so they can learn about our culture. Also, they have an art show up right now with Enya Studio. It's a group show. Come and check it out. It's an interesting, different type of display, and with some video installations and artwork up on the walls as well. So come check that out. We don't have any sponsors right now, so anything that you can do to help this podcast, don't forget, our Venmo is Dancing SOBR, spelled just like the podcast is spelled, DANCNG SOBR. And at the end of each podcast, I will have a list of people that help support the podcast. So thank you so much. Also, if you're interested in getting a bag of coffee once a month in your mailbox, let me know. I might just start that, and we'll see how that works out. I hope that you are all getting a great start to your new year. And without further ado, this week's guest is artist Alan Nakagawa. Let's get into it. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Dancing SOBR podcast. And this week we have with us an artist, a sound artist, visual artist, and I kind of want to call you an LA expert, too.
Whoa, okay.
LA expert, Alan Nakagawa. How are you, sir?
I'm good.
Yeah, it's really good to have you
Thanks
here.
for having me here.
My pleasure.
I love this store.
We've been trying to bring you in for a couple months. I'm glad we finally got you.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I mean, we all have things going on in our lives, and it's perfect. I feel like it always works out how it's supposed to work out. So, welcome.
Thank you.
Let's get into a little bit about Alan being a young boy and where you grew up and kind of like, what happened. No.
Oh, what happened?
I'm kidding. But we like to talk about the artists and how they grew up and where they grew up. So.
Oh, okay. Well, I was my family immigrated to Los Angeles in '57, and
From Japan.
From Japan. Sorry,
What-
from Japan.
What area?
Hiroshima,
Okay.
and I was born in '64, so it wasn't that much after that they came back. I mean maybe that's a lot. 7 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was the first born in the U.S. Many cousins and my brother afterwards. But for 4 or 5 years, I was like the only kid. And I think in my family, I was speaking Japanese primarily.
Wow.
Till 5. I mean, it's a typical.
Where did your parents first set roots in the United States?
They were first in the produce district,
Okay.
where a lot of Japanese from Hiroshima ended up being. And then, the family slowly, through the ship, came in. And then my mom got married to my dad. And then there was like, we need a bigger place. So that's how we got the house that I inherently live now.
Oh, wow.
I'm like the third generation to own it, I guess. And it's a common story amongst the immigrant kids that we've inherited these houses in and around that Crenshaw
Wow.
Olympic area. There's several of us. Anyway. So
That's Koreatown, right?
yeah, now it's called Koreatown or Mid-Cities.
Mid-City.
Kind of in between the two. And then in my specific, neighborhood, when I was growing up, it was pretty much like 80% Japanese immigrants.
Really?
Yeah.
It's not now.
No. In fact, we might be the last family
Really?
from that. Yeah, I don't really know of any other Japanese families on Fifth Avenue.
On my neighborhood where I grew up in East LA, so Winter Street all the way down by Dittman, for those who know, that area was all Mexican, but there was one Japanese
Oh, okay.
a family that lived there, and they kind of kept to themselves, and
Yeah.
they didn't really uh, or a lot of us didn't know them, and eventually they moved out.
I,
But that they did have the nicest like plants.
oh yeah, the landscaping. So
Oh, but wait, on the other side, over on Blanchard, there's a little stretch where there's at least like 6 Japanese homes, and you can tell, of course, by the landscaping. It's and you see them.
those families still live there?
Those families are still there. Yes.
Because like famously, you know, like I always bring this up, but like Crenshaw Square, in back of Crenshaw Square, which is in between Obama and Martin Luther King, that area of Crenshaw Square, and back of that are all those houses that have Japanese landscape in, but there's really no Japanese families anymore.
No, those do live there. You see them. They come out and they have big family gatherings.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, they're really nice.
Yeah, we're still around.
Yeah.
But there was this moment where everyone left. Moved to Torrance or Monterey Park. This recent horrible shooting that happened in Monterey Park, and all over the place. We're all over the place, and then eventually, the next generation assimilates, and now we're everywhere. But we kept the house.
But you grew up there in
Yeah,
that
I grew up.
house
Well,
your whole
yeah, I
life,
grew up.
so you've
that,
pretty much been there your entire life. In that
Pretty
house.
much, yeah.
Wow.
My father bought a house closer to LA Highway at one point, and then another house closer to the old Carnations. Do you remember Carnations on Wilshire? No.
I know Carnation, but I don't know the building.
Well, so
Yeah.
it's not there anymore, but around that area. But my grandparents and my aunts and uncles always lived there, so that was my babysitter in a sense, right? So when I came back from my post-grad, I was like, I need a place.
Wait, where'd you go to high school and all that in the area?
They used to call it elementary school, but now it's primary school, I think. It's called Wilton Place Elementary School.
Okay.
Or I guess it's Wilton Place Primary School.
Okay.
I don't know. Wilton Place.
Wilton Place, yeah.
So I went there, and then
Over by Wilshire, right?
yeah. It's on Wilton Place between Wilshire and Olympic,
Okay.
in the heart of K-Town.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then I went to an experimental middle school
Okay.
that was run by Founders Church, which is a religious science church. But we rented the school facilities of the Hollywood Jewish Temple on Hollywood Boulevard. For those who know where that is, that's been there for a really long time.
Wow.
So we used to be there Monday through Friday, and then the Jewish school would happen on Saturdays, and then we would be back on Mondays. It was very experimental and kind of crazy.
Anything like a Montessori type school or like a project based school where they don't have grades and they just
No,
have
they had
projects?
grades. No, it wasn't. I kind of wish that would have been interesting. I mean, I actually got a lot out of that. But what was the philosophy of that place? They were doing college level courses
Really?
in what was a middle school.
Wow.
I mean, in my day it was called junior high school, but
Yeah,
middle
same.
school, yeah. So
We're about the same age, right?
I think so. I'm 58.
71. I'm 52.
You're 70.
I'm
You
gonna
were born in 71?
Yeah, I was born in
Oh,
71.
no, I'm 64.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the year the Beatles came to.
I was the year the Doors dropped LA Woman. So.
Oh, they recorded it on Santa Monica Boulevard.
Okay.
You know where I'm talking about?
No. Oh,
It's a restaurant now.
The recording studio. No.
Yeah.
Where was
There's
it?
a plaque on the brick
shit.
wall in front of the restaurant.
Oh.
Yeah,
What
the
restaurant is it?
I don't know.
We'll get into restaurants.
Anyway,
later.
sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
We're
This is what podcasts do. We're having fun.
Okay.
Don't worry. So
I grew
middle
up
school.
in that area, and then for high school I went to a high school that doesn't. Can I go back to Founders?
yeah, of course.
So Founders School was first grade to ninth grade, and there were 500 students. So in my class there were 9 students. We had 3 teachers for us,
Wow.
and then 2 or 3 other teachers that circulated. So surprisingly, but not surprisingly, the year I graduated, it went bankrupt and closed.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it
They
doesn't
invested a
exist.
lot in you, and then they just went
Yeah, they was like,
bankrupt.
we can't afford you
Oh,
anymore.
wow.
It's basically, yeah. But it was so that's what when I talk about it, it was an experiment.
But what do you remember most about the way that they taught, or the way the classes were designed, or what do you
Well,
think was different?
I wasn't
Or what was
aware of it.
experimental about it?
Well, I wasn't aware of it at that time. It was just a new experience for me. But looking back on it, it seems like they sort of handpicked the students to be in the class. So they had a very diverse economic base and a very diverse ethnic base.
Okay.
Yeah. So there was that, and then the 3 main teachers were very different from each other. So one, Mr. James, he had just graduated from the psychology department at Arizona University or Arizona State University, one or the other. And Mrs. von Honwer had experienced World War II. The Nazis killed her entire family and experimented on her husband. So we got that.
Wow.
She was I think she was Hungarian, Jewish. And then the Dr. Fucci, Esmeralda Fucci, she came from a military family in Argentina. Like age 9, she had a pistol and a holster.
Wow. And this is the era of a lot of like military experimentation.
Yeah,
too,
there's a
so-
lot going on. This is like 76 to 79, I
Wow.
guess.
I
or
would love
70,
to
yeah.
see the reports that were submitted to whoever
I wish they would do that.
requested
Like,
them. Yeah.
what happened to all those students, you know?
There has to be some data on what happened there and what was learned, or I don't know.
I hope so. I would love to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was we were, I mean, at what age 14, 15, maybe 16, we're studying Machiavelli.
Wow.
We're reading a Shakespeare play once a week and getting tested on it.
Wow.
What else do we do?
They were trying to make little geniuses.
I don't know
and
what
they
was
did.
going on. People were crying, you know, like the pressure was like pretty intense. I remember, like passing out the grade, that ritual.
Yeah.
I mean, people would be crying, you know. It was like, I mean, I'm laughing, but it was
Of course, it was traumatizing back
it was
then.
traumatizing for a lot of people. I've actually met some people throughout the years who went there and they hated it. But for some reason, I really liked it. Like,
He says with a
I-
giant smile.
yeah, I
across his
enjoyed it
face.
so much. I thought it was a really important experience for me. But
Definitely.
above and beyond the education, being with that mixed group of people was fun, and it was kind of a fun time to be that age.
Yeah.
You know, like Parliament Funkadelic,
Yeah.
K-Day,
Yeah.
AM radio was happening. Also, what was the other one? 10Q. I don't know if you remember 10Q. That was a pop rock station. These are all
Mighty 690.
these are AM stations, right?
Yeah.
This is before we started listening
Do you
to
remember the Mighty 690 or no? That was.
I don't. Did they have that? I don't
Yeah,
know
that
if
was another one. It
I
was
don't know if-
broadcast from Tijuana, Mexico, but it was
Oh.
like popular music here in in LA.
Oh, okay. I don't
Mighty
know.
690. Yeah.
Was that around in 74,
Yeah.
70? I mean, 76 and
Yeah,
77.
definitely. Yeah.
Well, we missed.
I mean, I remember it as a little kid, so
Yeah, yeah. Oh, okay.
that had to be it.
But yeah, it was
Mighty
fun.
690, KMET, and KLOS.
That was high school for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was me being a little kid.
Oh, you were listening to KLOS?
My uncle was, so I was learning from
Oh, okay.
learning
okay,
about
all
Led
right.
Zeppelin and stuff like that.
Did you ever listen to Dr. Demento on Sundays?
I don't remember that.
Oh, I think that was KMET. Dr. Demento was this DJ who was really into comedy recordings and sort of offbeat, nostalgic recordings. That's where we all first heard Weird Al Yankovic, for instance.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he's the
listen
one
to
that,
that.
quote unquote discovered him or like
Yeah,
brought him
yeah,
to the
yeah.
foreground.
I would imagine.
Yeah, I recently
Yeah.
saw that movie.
Yeah.
Well,
Is there a movie?
Yeah, there's a brand new
Oh,
movie that's.
I
I'm
got
not
it.
gonna tell you anything about it. You should just watch it. The Weird Al story.
Oh, right. I saw that. Oh, so they talk about Dr. Demento.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
that's good.
they
They
tell you
should,
the whole
because
thing.
he kind of helped him put him on the
Oh
map.
yeah, he's definitely a character in there that discovers him and brings him forth. But my uncle was an old rocker from back in the days, and he actually shaved his head to say KMET back then.
Oh my God! Right, it's either you were either you were KLOS or KMET.
Yeah.
You couldn't listen to both.
And you were either rock or disco. You couldn't.
Oh.
You couldn't be. You had to be like just. There was a lot of like. I remember in elementary and middle school there was a lot of like different groups that would just completely separate.
Sure, yeah.
Anyways,
We never got into that. My what would you call my persona during that time was as a musician. Like I was, I hung out with musicians in the schools.
wow.
My best friends were all musicians, and after school I would hang out with musicians.
Did you do bands back then?
Yeah, we practiced all the time.
Wow.
The guitar player had like a semi, you know, soundproof garage.
I want to get into that a little
Okay.
bit later,
All right.
your music side, but I do want to, let's just real quick go over where you did get your degree and your,
Oh, okay. So I went to
Graduate.
Daniel Murphy, which also doesn't exist anymore.
what is that?
It was a Catholic all-boy high school kind of
Okay.
thing, and I think when the suit for pedophilia went down, they had to come up with money. They sold a lot of property, including Daniel Murphy High
So the
School.
Archdiocese sold the school and
Yeah. They had to
Sold the
come up with
property.
all this money. So
wow.
I think that's what happened. But anyway, it's gone. We're all bitter about it. I think there's a Facebook
Yeah,
page.
there's a lot of buildings that were
Yeah.
sold off because of that during
It's-
that time. Yeah.
It's a shame. So I don't have a middle school or a high school to go back to. You know how most people do. I don't have that. Yeah, but my elementary school still exists.
You guys can get together at like Red Lobster or something.
Yeah. Whew. That's harsh.
I'm kidding.
Yeah. So are they one of your sponsors?
No,
Okay, is that why you mentioned them? I didn't.
not a sponsor.
Okay.
That's
So,
hilarious.
yeah, and then after that, I went to art school. I went to, at the time, now it's called, I don't know what it's called, Otis College of Art and Design.
Yeah.
But back then it was called Otis Parsons School
Yeah.
of
So
Fine
you went
Arts.
to it when it was over by MacArthur Park.
MacArthur Park.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, the OG.
So I went there for 4 years, got my degree, and then I went to UC Irvine for my master's. And then after that, I did my post-grad through the Mombusho Scholarship, which is Japan's version of the Fulbright, basically.
Okay.
And so I got to study, first, my Japanese was so bad, they sent me to a language school in Osaka, where I just, drank a lot and played
How
music.
old were you?
24-ish.
That's fun.
25, maybe, yeah, maybe 25. And then they sent me to Japan University School of Fine Arts, where I studied with amazing theater people. I studied Japanese theater design,
Wow.
and then I came back, and then I went and worked for Judy Baca
Really?
for 2 years at Spark, Social and Public Art Resource Center.
Okay.
And I had already had a relationship with Judy before then.
Yeah. Let's just touch a little bit on I mean, because I think it's really
On what?
I think it's awesome that you got to go to Japan.
Oh,
Not
yeah,
back
yeah.
to Japan because you were born here, but
Right. That was
You
my
got-
first time.
yeah, you got to go to Japan and spend some time there, and being of Japanese heritage and going back or going to Japan and seeing it for the first time, but also being like a 24-year-old like young guy just out there, having fun and learning. Just share with us some of that experience. How was that for you?
Well, I mean, anybody who's the firstborn of immigrant parents in the United States, ever since you were a kid, people would come and visit,
Yeah.
right, from the home. So I had met quite a few of my relatives. So at this point, I'm an adult. They know who I am, and I'm coming to Japan. So it was like a 2-year party.
Oh,
I had a free place to stay
wow.
everywhere in Japan. I have so many more uh, family members in Japan than here,
Wow.
and it was a glorious experience on that level. But also, to be a Mombusho scholar, it's literally in your passport that you're a Mombusho scholar. So when you go to the line at the airport, you open it up, they just close it, and they let you go.
It's VIP.
It's really cool, yeah. So I don't have that anymore, but for those 2 years, it was great. Um, and I I've told my friends this story. I don't think I've ever recorded this, but I think it's my first month in Japan. We're in Osaka because I'm at that language school, and all the other people from around the world who got the Mombusho who don't speak Japanese are also at this university. So I got to meet these amazing scholars and researchers and from all over the world. So I'm sitting in the bus because where we are is kind of in the mountain. It's a place called Mino in Osaka. So I'm on the bus and I'm going like, why is this so different? And I'm just like, wait a minute, my feet touch the ground. My feet touch the ground.
Oh, God.
And then I remember one time, I had to stand, and what do you call this?
The handle.
The little handle.
Yeah.
It's like there.
Yeah.
It's not this.
Yeah.
It's like this.
Oh,
I'm going
dude.
like. So there were all these moments where like everything's to my scale.
It's made for
It's
you.
made for me. Even the bus stop, I fit perfectly in the seat, and so that was my first kind of thing. And then I think at some point I go more into the city, and you're in the subway, especially like in the underground area during rush hour, let's say, or maybe Saturday night, and it's just sea of black hair. Today it probably wouldn't be like that because so many people dye their hair.
Yeah.
But back then, I'm talking about 1988, 89, sea of black hair, and that you're not Japanese. I mean, I know I'm not Japanese, but I also know that I can blend in.
Yeah.
Like here, especially if I'm in a situation where there aren't any Asians, you know that you're the only Asian in the room, right? And so, but the ability to blend in was a revelation.
I wish
for
I
me.
could find a place like that because anywhere I go, I'm just this giant ogre standing on the side or trying to fit in, trying to be invisible, That's awesome.
Tall people, I think, also have this problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I
You're
do.
tall,
I mean,
right?
when you were saying that, it reminded me of the first time that I got an actual bike to my size, and everything. Actually, I used to just get any bike, and I finally got a bike that was my size, and I was like, wow, it's just a complete different feeling just to feel like, oh, all this fits. This is how it's supposed
It's
to.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good design.
Yeah.
That's what good design is. When it feels right. Yeah.
So you don't. You said you go there and you know that you're not Japanese.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You don't say you're Japanese.
No. Oh, in fact, when I start talking, they go, "Where are you from?" And I say Los Angeles, and they go, "Oh, okay." Because I guess I look Japanese, obviously.
Yeah.
Both of my parents are from Japan.
Yeah.
So, and they're Japanese. So, it makes sense that I look Japanese. But I also think, and I've heard this, if you see me walking down the street in Tokyo or whatever, I'm not from Japan. There's something about the way I walk, which it's very LA. I guess I have this LA strut that
The LA laid backness.
laid backness or something, or this in the intention of walking is
I totally can.
it's
see that.
different.
Yeah.
It's just different. I guess it's different in any cultural thing, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Like even within the U.S., it's probably different.
You could just walk in somewhere and feel completely like different because everybody just has a different hellos or different just the way they greet people or the way they just look at you. Sometimes it's just completely different.
That regional culture thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So that was your Japan experience.
Yep.
And when you come back, you're now graduate student, right?
Yeah.
You're like this genius that traveled the world and
not genius. I'm out of work. I'm unemployed.
You're this out of work
so
genius.
Judy heard I was back, so she called me and she said.
So how did you know Judy from before?
So when I met Otis, through Otis, I was in the first mural training program at Spark. Okay. And then at UC Irvine, I was Judy's TA.
Oh, wow.
For like a semester or two.
Wow.
And then, and so by the time I get back, oh, he's back. Yeah. You need a job? We're looking for somebody, that kind of thing. And so I worked with Robert Seaman. I don't know if you know him. No. He and I did our best to run this mural program at Spark. So the good part about that was we got to meet with all these amazing artists, work with them, try and help them as best we could, and then work with youth in neighborhoods to help that artist paint that mural. And some of those youth are now professional artists.
That's awesome.
Right? And so, and then we got to interact with these community peoples, especially like the store owner or the property owner who owned the wall. So that was kind of the process for that. And I don't think Robert and I don't think we had any experience in doing that. I certainly had never painted a mural, so I didn't really know what was going on. But, we tried our best for 2 years, and I think we were fairly successful. Some of those murals are still up. Yeah. Most of them are not.
That's also like something that you do a lot is like to start to get into the work that you do now. Everything that you do is deeply based in community. Maybe not everything, but a lot of your work is deeply based in community and in research. And it's something that you've had since then, I guess. You just dive in and you start to organize and put things together. That's,
Well, it's all about stories, right? Like everyone has a good story. And so the muralists were always interested in bringing that story onto the wall. And so, but within the process, you get to hear the artist stories, the community stories, the students who are helping, their stories. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
I remember one of my assistants got shot. Wow. Completely. When someone shoots at somebody on the street in the neighborhood, but then there's like a stray bullet and hits somebody else completely unintended. That's what happened to him. He got shot in the stomach, which, as you know, is pretty horrible. Yeah. So I went to go visit him at the hospital, and I'm walking in scared because that's my mind. It's like this dude was so upbeat. It's like he just showed me how resilient people are.
So happy to see you.
Well, just I got shot. You want to see the scar? It's really cool. He was in high school, so he's like 16, 17 years old. It's happened to other people in his family and friends, and it was just like a completely different reality.
Yeah.
So, in that experience was filled with stuff like that. I come from a lower middle class family, everyone's like working, but we're pretty privileged.
Yeah.
Either we're privileged or we're naive, one or the other. But it's a pretty good unit. Yeah. It's dysfunctional, but but in a healthy way. So you see. So anyway, anything that has to do with violence on that level has been couched a certain way through the media. So, so when I walk into the hospital and I'm like, oh my God, he's probably like so depressed, and what am I going to say to him? And how can I cheer him up? And like, he's cheering me up, It's like, wow. So anyway, that's just one incident, but that experience was filled with things like that. And you're also wearing the moniker of an organization. So when you walk in, you're not just a nobody. You're like, oh, he's representing the organization that's paying everybody, basically, right? And so there's that kind of level of, that was the first time I ever experienced that too. And then we got to work with field deputies of city council offices. So that was the first time. I don't know about Bobby, but for me, I never worked with any political thing,
You start to see how the
Yeah,
system works in a way.
on that level.
Yeah.
It wasn't the ugly stuff
Yeah,
that
yeah,
can
yeah.
happen above, but this was all like trying to help actual community members.
Yeah, because I mean that's a lot of little tiny things that can't help artists and organizations.
Well, yeah, like
move
a summer
forward.
job for a kid, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Getting services for, I mean, we show up, we put the mural up, but then now we have access to services. So the property owner's saying stuff, and it was like, oh, there's a program for that. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So.
I first met you like in the late '90s, I think, and it was just a slight or just a quick hi, I'm whatever.
Yeah.
When you were with Collage Ensemble.
Oh yeah, collage.
And so like I mean we're gonna jump around a lot because
Sure.
all the different things that you do, but that was another thing that was like different groups of people making music. And what were you creating then, or what was the goal of Collage Ensemble?
The goal of Collage Ensemble was generally just friends getting together and talking about what pissed them off that week or month or year or whatever. And then if we found common ground, we would like, oh, well, maybe we should do a project about that. And then we would. So that's, it was collaborative. And we tended not to care much what kind of artist you were. So at some point they were like, a magician, was a part of Collage Ensemble. But it was very multidisciplinary and very, it's kind of a buzz term, but like interethnic,
I think that like collaborative is the word that I was looking for when I was thinking about all of your work. Because all of your work, you're working with an organization or with somebody and you're always collaborating. It's never like, I don't know if you ever do just work on yourself or by yourself and create a piece of art, but most of your work is this way, collaborating with either a group, an organization, or a specific community to build something. Yeah.
How'd that happen?
It probably started in that middle school.
Probably.
That's what
Yeah, maybe in the middle school. I know in college, I had a couple of experiences that helped me later in life, and that one was I got to be on the performance committee for the women's building. So I'm like 18, 19 years old, and I'm at the table with people like Nancy Buchanan and Rachel Rosenthal. It's like, the other day I met Susan Mogul, who's an amazing artist, certainly part of the feminist canon, art, and she, we were introduced, and she was like, "Oh, who are you?" And we talked, and I said, "Hey, Susan, actually, this is the second time we've met. Like, I met you at like '86 or something like that when you had a show at the Women's Building, and of course she's not going to remember because I was just a kid, and I was just, I was basically a tech when we had performances. So, but that the idea that there's a place and all these people have a common bond and that they work their butts off to keep it alive, regardless, and sometimes to the detriment of other things in their lives, was like intense to experience, My family, we're restaurant people. Like, that's my reality. And then I wanted to become an artist, so I went to art school. But my only work ethic was running a restaurant. Like, I understood that.
Did you work in the restaurant when you were young?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't cook or anything. I was washing dishes and peeling shrimp and potatoes and
Yeah, that's
bussing.
awesome. I mean, you learned some kind of discipline through.
Oh
that.
yeah. I hated it.
Yeah.
I hated
Where
working
was
there.
it?
It was on Norton and Olympic.
Norton and Olympic.
Norton, yeah, which is near Crenshaw.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, since we are hopping around,
Yeah, we are.
this is another thing that fascinates me with you is like your fascination with little tiny restaurants all over LA. You have so many like secret spots, or not secret spots, but you just especially burger joints, I guess, all across LA. And yeah, I mean,
LA.
obviously that came from having to eat and being a human being, but
So when the other career that I had was I was managing public art projects for the LA Metro system.
okay.
That department's called Metro Art.
Yeah.
And I worked there for 25 years.
And that's when we re-met.
That's when we, yeah. Oh, remet, yes.
Remet,
That's when
yeah.
we remet. And because of the nature of our projects, we would have to hang out in neighborhoods for a while. So, lunchtime.
Yeah.
So you ask the community people you're working with, hey, where's a good place to eat?
Yeah.
And then, 20 years later, you have this list of favorite spots all over Los Angeles.
How many years did you do that job?
About 25 years. Yeah.
And that's a lot of years.
Yeah, it was a great job. I really enjoyed working there.
I mean, I'm just thinking that's a lot of years of being out and having lunch, and you're installing art and looking at
Right.
locations, and you're and
Meeting people and
Metro's doing
learning
so
history.
many big things and new things during that entire time. It's like when they really like expanded
Right.
the light rails, and so there was artwork going up
Trying to
everywhere.
get back to the red car, basically.
Wow, you had so much of that, like
Well,
original.
So, Rafa, not only was I, the first 4 years I was at Metro, I was also lent out, in a sense, to Metrolink. So I was also doing the public art for Metrolink.
Wow.
So it wasn't just Los Angeles, but I did projects like in Pomona and Claremont and where else? San Fernando and all these places that I didn't know. I didn't really know anything about.
Yeah.
So I mean, of course, I learned more about Los Angeles because of that Metro
Yeah. Of course.
gig. But Metrolink also got me out further into other counties, right?
And I think this connects with your other, I don't know if I call it a hobby or the other thing that you do, not a hobby, but that you love archives and archiving. So I think that's where you started to like archive all of the restaurants.
Right. That was part of my job was I was archiving people's histories.
Oh, okay.
Right. So the restaurants was a side gig in a sense, right?
So you had to. So the artists that you worked with, or the local communities?
The local community.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
And you have to ask yourself, well, who gets involved in public art
Mm-hmm.
development in a neighborhood? It's the OGs, the people who are like the third generation in Chatsworth, that kind of person. Yeah. So the history that they bring to the table is like, what, and like that's where I learned in Chatsworth. There's a big golf course, and back in the day, that's where they filmed all of the westerns, Western movies. And so in the golf course, you would see people like Gene Autry golfing with Bing Crosby, Dale Evans and Roy Rogers, they're like golfing in between when they have to be on the set or something like that. So now it's, none of that exists anymore, I don't think.
No.
Well, they don't really make westerns, but.
So if you had to pick your final meal.
Oy! My final meal.
In an LA restaurant.
Oh, that's a good one.
Anywhere in, within the LA reach.
It's so hard to pick one.
I can't imagine, this is just me, like I can't imagine that you would go like high end. I don't know if you would
No. Well, one might be across the street.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But I'm
That's good to know.
secretly in love with her, but Anyway, but I don't speak Spanish, so I don't think it would ever work. I think she's married. Um,
We're gonna find out.
her
for you.
tortillas are amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing.
But if I can only pick one, I would resurrect Beverly Soon tofu and have the seafood combination.
Yeah, I remember you posted a lot about that when it went
Oh, I
out.
cried.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, more than Capital Burgers.
Wow.
And that's saying something because Capital Burgers is a staple in my family. When that place closed, that was like we were depressed for like a month, you know.
Wow.
But no, Beverly Soon tofu, the seafood combo with some, bulgogi or something like that. I don't know. In the banta, of course. If that's a good last meal.
Yeah.
That's a good last meal, right?
That sounds good. I mean, I never had that place, but
Maybe
it
soju.
sounds
Some
really good
soju.
too. Yeah.
Since it's my last meal.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting how this conversation is going this way because a lot of your artwork is like little pieces of things. I mean, I don't even know how to like categorize your art. You're a sound artist as well.
Yeah, it's a problem. I'm not marketable.
No, I think it's amazing, and it's part of what draws me towards you is that you're always doing something that I've never seen before. In some kind of a way, it's brand new, and in some kind of a way, it's raw, and everything that you create, also in your displays or in your exhibits, you can see your hand in it. Like it's a lot of it is
that's
handmade.
good. That's very important to me.
Yeah, a lot of it is your touches and everything, and it's even the stands that you use or the spaceships that you build.
Yeah, the spaceship. Yeah.
and in the music that you make to show, it's your hand is everywhere in these things, and it's impressive and beautiful.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Oh, that's so nice of you to say. Wow, you're being really nice to me today.
Oh, really? As if I'm Mr. Mean Guy on another day.
Yeah, I don't, this was not my course. I can't even tell you if I had a course, but this was not I wasn't navigating towards this.
Yeah.
I just found myself in this situation. And recently, I've been asked to talk about this thing that you're talking about. There's a book now.
Really?
It's called Airhead, The Anatomy of Artist in Residence. It's through Red Large Projects.
Wait, this is your book? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, we haven't had a, book launch yet. So
You hear that elotero? I don't know if they can hear that in the sound. But
I'm getting hungry.
yeah, that sound that you hear, if you can hear it, is not a duck. It's the elotero coming by. Okay, I did want to. The last time that we spoke, I know that you did talk about that you were writing a book.
Yeah, I finished.
This is exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited.
dude.
People have been very kind to text me on my IG and because I'm not selling the book. The Red Large Press is selling the book, and it's on like Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
Yeah.
So people are buying this thing. I don't know who they are, and they're texting me. They find me on Instagram.
So it's already out.
It's out. It's been out, but we haven't had a book launch, so nobody knows.
Yeah.
Most of my friends don't know that it's out because
You haven't.
I want to have a party.
I remember when
like
we were
to have a party.
I came to your house one day. We were talking, and
Where should I have the party?
I don't know. Your house is a good idea.
No, like a real
it should be
I
somewhere
want
in that.
people to read, the traditional book launch kind of thing.
Well,
Friends to read out of the book.
maybe at one of the places where you did a residency. Because when we were there at your house, we were talking about. I was like, Alan, like you.
He's in front now. He was back there, but now.
I was like, Alan, you like continued to like get these. Well, it was also when you finished working with Metro, and you just were getting like residency after residency after residency.
Right. That's what the book's about.
And I was blown away by that. And that's when you told me, "Oh yeah, I'm writing a book about it now." I was like, that's awesome because
it's
obviously you have a formula that works.
right. And so what happened was, especially after LADO, Los Angeles Department of Transportation.
That's right. After Metro, you did LADOT residency.
there was that, and then there was the mayor's office for Great Streets, and then the Getty Villa, and there was this moment where people were starting to contact me, people I don't know, and they said, "Can I have coffee with you?" And it's like, "Yeah, are you gonna buy coffee? I'll go," you know. So we usually would go to Document Coffee in K-Town, sit there, and I'm always interested in meeting another artist. So we're talking, and then it's always like, the reason I wanted to meet you is because, like, how did you get all those residents? Like, I would love to do that, and I don't know how to get in there. And I'm usually more logistically telling them how to do it, but then I started realizing, especially once I walk away, maybe the next day I go, "Oh, I should have told them that," or "I should have told them that." And this was also during the time I was working with Dave Bell at the Visitors Welcome Center. I was having a show there, and he told me to write about my process. And so that was the first, okay. And then the organizations I were working with, they were like, "Could you please write a final report?" And then one of them was like, "We'd like to hire more artists. Can you write like a how-to for them, right?" So all of a sudden I was like, I'm not a writer, but okay, I'll write these things down. And so I wrote them, and then I started writing about other things I was working on. And then one day I put it all on one PDF. Wow. And I sent it to my friend, Chiwan Choi. I said, "Chiwan, I'm not really a writer, but I got this thing."
Was it like 100 pages?
It was 80-something pages.
Wow.
And I was like,
I'm not a writer. Here's 80 pages.
But it was a collection of all these things,
that's still awesome.
And I was like, "Hey, I don't know. Do you have any idea what publisher would be interested in an art book like this?" And then, like the next week, he was like, "Sorry, it took me so long. I read it," and goes like, "Hey, if you can wait, we would love to publish it." Awesome. And so that's why Red Large Projects is the publisher, because they usually publish poetry books.
Yeah.
Like Trey's book, and they've done, I think, Rocio, right? Maybe.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure, but anyway, I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Yeah, we published one art book that was Mike Songson's book." It's I don't know if you've seen it, but it opens up, and there are all these art things that come out, like little drawings and paintings, and it has, of course, has poetry. Mike Songson, Mike the Poet. So they said, "We've been wanting to do a second art book, so we'd love to do this one." So that's how that happened, and it is out. It was on LA Taco.
Yeah.
So Mike wrote a thing about the best books about LA in 2024. So he put my book on there.
Wow.
So there's that, and other people, mostly
I can't
friends.
believe you haven't told people.
I know. I because I'm thinking, aren't you supposed to have a book launch party? Yeah. And I because it's
Writ Large Press is not a huge.
No, it's
publisher,
just three people.
Yeah, so I mean,
Peter Woods.
It's not like they could just
Judy,
be like, "Hey, here's a."
And Ogden Choi and Chiwan Choi. It's just three people, but they do amazing work. But you and I know a lot of writers and poets.
Yes.
And so you understand when I say I don't see myself as a writer, right? Do you understand that, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
of course.
I see myself as a sound artist. I'm a sound artist.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I love that you say, "I'm not a writer. Here's 80 pages."
Here's a book. Yeah. Well, okay. So I was also interested in accessibility issues. So I asked. The designer is China. Manforte.
Okay,
Studios. Yeah. So China designed the book.
Oh, that's awesome.
So when we were meeting, I said, "Hey, I want the book to have big type, so that elder people with bad visually impaired can see the book." And she says, "Oh, okay, we could do that." So it's big type on.
It's gonna be more pages.
it's like 240 pages.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, but it's really like a 120 page book.
Oh, that's awesome, dude.
So.
It's exciting. Yeah. So we'll talk about where you can have the opening. I mean, the book release can be here if you want at Espacio.
Yeah. I came to your.
Yeah, you came here.
Book
we
signing.
We could totally do it here. We could totally talk to him, Nico, and make that happen.
I love this place. I've bought lots of T-shirts here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Christmas presents.
So you brought up the sound design, and I definitely want to just ask you a little bit about that and how sound became so important in your life. And
Oh, yeah. Well, so let's see. I've spoken many times about my tinnitus. So, many people have tinnitus or tinnitus, depending on how you pronounce that, the ringing in the ear. Mine's is not so bad compared to some people who have like chronic tinnitus. But I think that paved the way for the kind of sound sculptures and invisible architecture that I've been creating in the past couple of years. But I started as a drummer. I started as a drummer. I mean, when I was a little kid, I was into the Beatles and Kiss. And I was a big Peter Criss fan. And so one year I went to go see Kiss at the Forum. And my friend friend of the family who was in the music business said, are you interested in playing an instrument? And I said, I'd love to play the drums, And so he got me a drum set.
wow.
Yeah, and it was a used drum set, so it needed some help. So I brought it to Drum City, which was on Santa Monica Boulevard near Vine. It doesn't exist anymore. And that was the beginning of a relationship. The guy who fixed the drums became my drum teacher.
Wow.
And then eventually I would work there. That was my part-time job during high school. So I got to meet all these people, like I got to meet, I got to meet a War and Los Bukis and Carol Kay.
Trip.
I don't know if do you know Carol Kay?
No, I don't
She's
know
an
Carol.
amazing bass player who's part of the, what are they called? The Wrecking Crew,
Oh, okay.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Oh, geez.
oh geez, I mean, I'm talking about the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was.
But this started your fascination with instruments.
Instruments.
Because
So-
instruments in general are.
Sometimes people would go on summer vacation and they would go, Alan, can I teach you how to fix the guitar so that when I go somewhere,
Oh, okay.
not major fixes, but like
Yeah.
change strings,
Yeah.
do the intonation, that sort of thing, or fix a drum head, or put a skin on a conga, So they would teach me all these things.
Awesome.
And I started like, wow, this is really great. And my teacher was teaching me to become a professional drummer. And I think I broke his heart when I told him I'm going to art school. He was like, art school. And so
And you were a jazz drummer, right? If
he
remember
was teaching me bebop and swing.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but of course I was into rock. I was in a rock band in high school.
Yeah.
But when I went to Otis, that all changed.
Wow.
Because they introduced me to experimental music and avant-garde music and microtonal music and all these crazy things that I had no access to until I got to Otis. Wow. And it just changed everything. That's where Collage Ensemble started, of course. And I think, let's see, there's so many influences. It's really hard to say this is what steered me in that direction. We were all into Laurie Anderson at the time. She was like the superstar. So that combination of different musics with what looks like a rock band, but not traditional rock band instruments, was fascinating. And then above that, it's her spoken word. And so that sort of, not like I didn't know Patti Smith's work yet. So when I saw that, it was like, and we went to go see her in Pasadena at the theater there, It was fantastic. But then as you get deeper and deeper, you start to understand, oh, this stuff has been around for like 60, 70 years, you know? And it all changed when I got to learn about Michael Brewster's work, who, you know, I always tell students, if there's any way you can go meet your superstar, your hero, your mentor, not your mentor, of course you meet your mentor, but you know, the people that you idolize, you should go meet them. Like, don't think like you can't meet them. And I wish I went to go meet, I met Michael Brewster about 2 or 3 years before he passed away. He was a teacher of Tin Winds, the artist Tin Winds, and Tin Wind introduced me to him. And so I did get an opportunity to say, Michael, you know, I hope this doesn't sound weird, but you changed my life. You know, I learned about your work, your sound sculptures, and it changed my whole perception of me being a musician to me being a sound artist. And it that opened the door for all of these things that I've done for at least a decade now, or if not more.
If you could put into a sentence or a couple of sentences,
Yeah.
how would you describe to people that don't know what a sound artist is or what a sound artist does?
Oh my God, it's so hard. Well, the field is still young enough that it's being reinvented every time someone calls themselves a sound artist, because it's a very general term, right? But the stuff that I do is based on documenting three-dimensionally, like with many recording devices, spaces. And so then you put that into the computer, and you can fidge with it so that you're, in a sense, making it musical. That's how I look at it. Somebody else looking at what I do may disagree with what how I describe it, but that's kind of where I'm coming from. I'm literally like interested in like the polyrhythms of the space, the sound bouncing off the walls, other things from outside being added, you know, and then you can play with the tones of a space and the highs, lows, and mids, right? And then I record it another place. And then what I do is I mash them together. So you're in two places at once. And in a multi-speaker environment,
Yeah, and then you create the space to
I
listen
create
to
the space, right?
So the
and then
space
you
where
walk
you listen
in,
to it is another
right?
element.
And so it's kind of like listening to a field recording, but in a very three-dimensional way.
Wow.
And then I've also utilized a lot of techniques from the deaf and hard of hearing community.
Okay.
And most, the thing that I always repeat is the use of the balloon. So, for instance, next month we're going to have a premiere of a piece at MoCA as part of the K-Chung residency. It's February 25th in the afternoon. It's a sound piece that will have voices, but also subsonics and ultrasonics. And the audience will be given balloons and earplugs, and they'll be encouraged to walk around this space outside with all these speakers. And what they're going to hear is voices and stories, but there's also these hidden frequencies that'll make the balloon vibrate.
And will that create another sound too, the vibration in the balloon, or just gonna?
No, I don't think, no.
Wow.
Yeah, but I think that you'll have plenty to play with.
Yeah.
It's a like a half-hour piece.
Okay.
But and there will be other sound artists that day.
Wow.
So yeah, but that's what I've been doing, and I've been very privileged in that I've gotten access to places that are unusual to access. I guess you could say, and most of it is based on a sort of autobiography, in that these places have some sort of meaning to me. So one of the places is Watts Towers here in Los Angeles, and I had always thought that Antoni Gaudi's work looked like Simon Rodia's. And as a kid, I thought he was ripping Simon Rodia off, but they actually didn't know about each other. And so I got permission to record inside the Sagrada Familia in Barcelona. And so the piece is called Conical Sound, and it's a mashup of the interior acoustics of Watts Towers and the Sagrada Familia.
Wow.
And then the other piece that was up at the Japanese American National Museum for a while during the pandemic, it's a mashup of the Hiroshima Atomic Dome, which is basically the last thing standing after the atomic bomb was dropped, and has become the focal point of a peace park and a museum. And it's a UNESCO heritage site. So it's, in a sense, governed by the United Nations, the atomic dome. Through amazing people, I was able to get access inside the atomic dome.
Wow.
So I, a city employee and a videographer, my friend Tom Clancy, we went in there we only had 1 hour, and I did a 3-dimensional recording of the acoustics of the atomic dome. And then here in the United States, I got access to the Wendover Hangar in Utah, and that's where the Enola Gay, the bomber that dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima, that's where it flew out to go to the Pacific to drop the bomb. And that's in Utah, and it's now a Smithsonian heritage site. And I got to record the acoustics of the hangar where the Enola Gay started.
Wow.
And so the mashup is of that space and the dome. And in my mind, or conceptually, it's the spirit of the Enola Gay coming back 70 plus years later back to the hangar. It never, physically went back to the hangar, but to me, it's the spirit. And to me, that voyage and what that voyage means and the time that voyage encompasses is what it's like to be Japanese American after World War II.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sounds like something that just conjures tears.
Oh.
Like I could imagine people listening to it, and I mean, it's making me choke up right now, but I could imagine.
Well, when we did it at the Japanese American National Museum, I was like part of this show that was the 75th commemoration of the bombing of Hiroshima. So they had all these artifacts from Hiroshima, and there was a private opening. You know how they have an opening for the public and they have this private opening? So I was told to present the piece at the private opening. And I was amazed that there were actually Hiroshima bomb survivors at the private opening, people from the city of Hiroshima in terms of like government officials and curators and people like that. And so when I told them exactly what I just told you, I mean, it shook them, I think, because in some ways, the people in Hiroshima, they've moved on, right? They rebuilt. That city is vibrant.
Yeah.
The Hiroshima Peace Park and this dome is kind of, in a way, the last remnants of that bombing, right?
Yeah.
Other than teaching it as history. But the people who left Hiroshima after that and came to Los Angeles, they remember it, right? They remember everything. Well, like my family, for instance, even though they have gone back, of course, to Hiroshima several times for some of them since, their Japanesism is 1957. Like when they were on the ship and they came back, like the way they speak that Japanese. When they go back to Japan today, people are like, what kind of Japanese, what?
Kind of like if you dropped it and were like groovy.
Right, exactly.
Time warp.
Exactly, yeah. It's a time warp.
That's
so
interesting.
So they were kind of, overwhelmed a little bit. I mean, it was very strong, the message. So I think the piece is very successful.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you want.
Absolutely. And I'm using the computer, mixing, making decisions tonally, rhythmically, like it's music, just like I do if I do music. I'm approaching it the same way, but I want to affect people, so I'm making decisions to affect the body. Yeah.
I think listening to that makes me want to try to compare it, or not compare it, or whatever, put it next to how painters use color. You know, you use sounds and the tonal and the different speakers coming in different directions to affect certain things, just like a painter might use color to push things forward and back, or, you know, to affect your brain in different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. It is intense. I mean, even just hearing the story right now is it was intense.
I've been very lucky. People have given me access to places that have been phenomenal. But this new piece is not like that. It's the first time I'm using the human voice, and so I got 24 stories of people who have left their organized religion.
Wow.
Like what was the last, like the straw that broke the camel's back. I wanted that moment. So I got like 24 of those. And then, do you remember the band 10cc from the 70s? No. There's a band called 10cc. They had a couple of hits, but their biggest hit is called I'm Not in Love. And there's actually a documentary on YouTube about it. So I during the pandemic, like all of us, we just going in these rabbit holes on YouTube. And I learned that the reason I'm so attracted to this song, and have been since I heard it in the 70s, I guess, is because it's a vocal-based choral piece that's a rock song. It was a moment in technology where rock bands had access to multi-track recording. So these guys were like, tired of doing these top 40 hits. Can we try a different approach? And somebody said, well, what if we made a song that was completely based on vocals? And that's what they did. So this guy had a song, and so they took the notes of that song and they recorded it as a group for one track, and then another track. And so there's a shot of the four of them in front of this huge board on the mixers, and they're all orchestrating, when to pull that chord out and when to pull that chord out. And that's what you're hearing on the record. And so what fascinated me, then I went to Wikipedia and I looked up that song, and it was like, oh, wait a minute. And then I went to Brian Eno's Wikipedia and I looked at airport music for airports, which is arguably the first ambient album, right? It's a year and a half before Brian Eno's album.
Wow.
So I'm tongue-in-cheek, making the argument, maybe this was the first ambient piece, not Brian Eno. Yeah. And this is also the same time where Queen records Bohemian Rhapsody.
Wow.
So there's this thing that's happening with all and I guess, I don't know, are they all British? I don't know. Maybe they're all from
It's kind of like just every time something new comes out.
It comes out of England, right? But so I used one verse and one chorus from that song, and I recomposed it so that what would have been a 20-second piece of music is now 33 minutes.
Wow.
And then I asked two friends of mine, Stephen Special and Evelyn Davis, who are professional choral singers, to come into the studio and give me a chromatic scale as much as they could. So one person gave me 2.5 octaves, the other person gave me almost 3 octaves. And then I used those notes and I built the chords from that song. And then I made this ambient piece, basically. And then we got the 24 stories of why someone left their organized religion. And then I had friends come and read those. And so that's the piece. And then I messed with it. So I entered subsonics, which are those really low frequencies that you and I can't hear. and then ultrasonics, which are the high frequencies that you and I cannot hear. And the piece, I've presented the piece in small groups twice, and it works.
It's impactful.
It's impactful, yeah. And so I'm really looking forward to doing it at MoCA. I'm thinking we're going to have a bigger audience.
Definitely.
And it's a fascinating piece. I also during the I was commissioned by Prospect Arts to create this piece. I pitched it, and then they said, "Yeah, we'll sponsor you." And they teamed me up with this guy, Ben Carpenter, who he's a social philosopher who has done a lot of work on religion in society. And so he's been with me throughout this entire process. I've bounced ideas off of him because I'm not a theologian. I'm not even religious, you know. So I think it was very smart of Prospect Arts to team me up with him. And Ben's been my like go-to guy, right? It's like, well, I'm thinking about this, and 9 times out of 10, he'll come back and says, well, you know, it's funny you should mention that. That's actually kind of a buzz term right now in theology. And then he'll send me all these articles, and, you know, and so there is some sort of academic muscle in back of this song that I usually don't have. You know, usually it's like whim and just my gut feeling of producing something. So it's my first time doing that too.
When is this gonna?
February 25th, I think. It's a Saturday.
Okay.
It's part of K Chung's residency there.
Okay.
I hope that's the right date.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you would like to?
I have this new gig, Cal State Dominguez Hills. Within the Cal State system, Cal State Dominguez Hills has one of the newest libraries. And so when they built the library, the director of the Girth Archives was able to design his space more or less. So it's a very state-of-the-art archive conservation studio / collection management facility. So in recent years, they acquired Art Kunkin's collection. He was the person who created the LA Free Press during the 60s and early 70s. The LA Free Press was the socialist newspaper of Los Angeles. But he had started it, you know, he was taking classes at East LA College. He had this history already in New York, being part of the staff for The Militant, which is the socialist paper in New York. Arguably or I just blanked out on the famous newspaper in New York. Okay, anyway. So he comes here and he's part of this socialist movement here in Los Angeles. And he goes to East LA College and he's taking some classes. And some of the students are like, hey, Art, we heard you're a expert on the U.S. Constitution. And he goes, yeah, I am. He was actually trained by C.L.R. James. Do you know C.L.R. James? C.L.R. James was a key socialist, inspiration. And he trained a lot of people like Grace Lee Boggs and all these heroes of American history that I've read books about. So Art Kunkin was one of them. So he's sent to Los Angeles to become the director of the socialist organization here in LA. He lives in Boyle Heights. He's Jewish, so there's lots of Jewish people in the 60s living here in Boyle Heights. And he takes classes. And his living room becomes the place where people who are going to Alabama, Birmingham, the walks, the marches. His people are congregating in his living room, and then the bus picks them up, for instance. He starts to witness all these things that are happening. He's on the staff for KPFK, you know, so which is a very political, socialist, progressive radio station here in LA. And he goes, we should write about this. You know, we should. You know, I was with the militant. I understand how to put these together. So he puts something together called the LA Free Press. Well, as we all know, things were starting to bubble in the early 60s. So all of these other organizations across the U.S. contact him and say, hey, Art, can you teach us how to do that? Because we would like to have a free press here. And by the end of it, there's over 200 free presses in the United States. Well, because he's the guy who kind of trained everybody to do it, they sent him their free presses. So when Cal State Dominguez Hills thought they were getting Art Kunkin's LA Free Press Archive, what they actually got was the United States Free Press Archive of the 60s. And so they called me and said, hey, you know, we got this 350 box collection.
We need your brain.
Yeah, you want to be the artist in resident here for this? And so I've loosely started that.
That's awesome.
And,
because you worked with Dominguez before.
I did with the Nanomio Photo Archive. Yeah, so they trust me.
That's awesome.
And I'm really excited about this next phase. I'll be there for about a year and a half.
Wow, that's exciting.
Yeah, and I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do, but I think it makes sense that we resurrect, or maybe we create an homage to the Free Press.
Yeah.
Working with the students at Cal State Dominguez Hills.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Right?
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think that's what we're going to do.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well,
very excited about that.
I'm excited about your book. Before we wind down, is there anything else that you would like to cover?
I mean, you and I have been around a long time now, you know. It's like, so we're LA artists. Yeah. Yeah. What does that mean to you?
Well, I don't know now, like, because I haven't really been doing photography, and you know, I mean, I draw in my sketchbook and all that, but it's I don't know, that whole, like, I think now I'm realizing that I just really like to document stuff too myself. So like the photography was a lot of documenting. And I didn't know this when I started doing it, but, you know, it became some kind of an archive that I have and documenting all that. And now this that I'm doing is like documenting the artists themselves, and also it's part of me learning more about what it is to be an artist, you know. So I think I'm learning a lot, of course, through these conversations with all of you guys. And it wasn't supposed to be like just artists on this podcast, and it hasn't been. But it's like 80%.
Right. Seems to be about artists.
Yeah. And that just happened because that's the people that I know. Like everybody that's been on here is somebody that I have a connection with, you know. So it's kind of cool to be able to have done that and learn, you know. So yeah, it's, I don't know. I'm the way that I work is that I really never know what I'm doing, and I just keep going.
Yeah.
I don't know what the purpose of all this is. It's just
well, the series is great.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. And it's because of people like you that come here and just give so much, you know. You guys are so giving, and that's what makes these conversations great, I think. Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, thank you. Do you have a website or somewhere where people can reach you?
Yeah, it's just my name, AlanNakagawa.com.
AlanNakagawa.com on the worldwide interweb.
Yep.
And
so all the stuff that's about to happen is there.
Awesome.
And yeah, it'd be great to see people come out.
Yeah. Social media?
I'm only on Instagram.
Yeah. Under your name, right? Just
Nakagawa 2015 or something like that.
Okay.
What is it? Is that what it is?
I think that's what it is.
I don't know what it is.
Nakagawa 2000 something.
Yeah.
And there's a question that we ask everybody at the end of each podcast, and I don't explain it anymore. It's just a vague question, and the challenge is to try to answer in one sentence.
Oh, okay.
So, Alan Nakagawa, how do you do it?
By catching myself when I'm not being humble.
Thank you. By catching myself when I'm not being humble.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time. Thanks for coming to Boyle Heights. And we'll see you guys next week.